Hello and welcome to the fourth part of UTT Business Router's basic configuration. In this video, I'll show you the Firewall and VPN menu on the UTT Business Router. UTT Business Routers now include N518W, AC750W, AC750GW, and AC1220GW. As in the previous videos, we'll try to solve a question after finishing this one. The question is, how to prevent LAN hosts from visiting any websites while still having access to a server on the other end of the VPN. Please refer to this topology. The UTT business router on the left has established a VPN connection with the router on the right. The LAN IP address of the UTT business router is 192.168.1.1. The LAN IP address of the router on the other end of the VPN is 10.10.10.1. We will discuss this later. There are four parts on the firewall menu. They are attack prevention, access control, domain filtering, and MAC address filtering. First, let's take a look at attack prevention. There are internal attack prevention and external attack prevention. Let's look at the interface directly. Click Firewall. Click Attack Prevention. These features in internal attack prevention, as the terms suggest, can protect the device against DDoS attack, IP spoof, UDP flood attack, ICMP flood attack, SYN flood attack, and ARP spoof. When ARP spoof is enabled, the device periodically broadcasts gratuitous ARP packets. These gratuitous ARP packets are used to inform the LAN hosts the correct MAC address of the device's LAN interface. The interval of sending gratuitous ARP packets can be set here. Device access restriction limits the access to this device to the specified IP addresses. Port scanning prevention protects the device against port scanning. In external attack prevention, if block WAN ping is enabled, the router will not respond to ping requests from the WAN side. That's all for attack prevention. Next is access control. We can configure all kinds of access control roles on this page. This is the page for role configuration. Let's look at the demo. Click Access Control. Here is the access control list. When the router receives a packet initiated from LAN, it will search the access control list to find out if there is a role that matches the packet. The first role that matches the packet is applied, and a specified action, allow or deny, is taken. After a match is found, no further roles will be applied. We can click Add to add a new role, or click a role in the list to add it. This role is named No Internet because we wish to prevent all LAN hosts from accessing the Internet with this role. Make sure to check Enable here. The source IP is a group of LAN IP addresses to which the rule applies. 0.0.0.0 indicates all IP addresses. It does the same thing with user group, all users. User groups need to be configured in the User Management user group. Select Deny or Allow in action. We should select Deny in this role. In filtering type, we select IP filtering because we need a role based on IP addresses. URL filtering enables us to filter URLs based on keywords in the URL. The URL keyword is case insensitive. Please do not include the HTTP or HTTPS prefixes in the keyword. Keyword filtering enables us to block hosts from submitting information to the web page based on keyword. It only supports the deny action. DNS filtering filters the keyword in domain names. We can choose different protocols applying in this rule, such as ICMP, TCP, and if we can select TCP or UDP, we will be able to specify the range of destination port and source port here. We can select destination ports in common service or just enter them here. Now we need the protocol to be all. Then set the range of destination IP addresses. Also, 0.0.0.0 refers to all IP. We can configure a schedule for the rule to take effect. By default, it is every day in a week and all day long. Click Save. Check here to enable all the access control rules and save. As we mentioned earlier, the higher its position in the list, the higher priority this rule has. We can change its position here. Next is domain filtering. It helps us to block or only allow the visit to certain websites. And we can even configure a notification for the person who is trying to visit the websites which are blocked. Let's take a look. Click Domain Filtering. Check to enable domain filtering. There are two filtering modes. Only block domain names in domain name list and only allow domain names in domain name list. Configure the network object here. Domain filtering will apply to all the hosts in the network object. We can select a schedule here. Schedules can be configured in App Control, Schedule. The domain name keyword to be filtered is configured here. We can use the wildcard in the keywords. Let's click Domain Block Notification. Check to enable it. We can specify a title for the notification, redirection time, and redirect URL. The content of the notification is here. Users will receive the notification when they try to visit the blocked domain name. They will be redirected to this page in a certain time configured here. Next is MAC address filtering. This function helps to either allow or block certain hosts to access the network based on their MAC addresses. The MAC address entries can be configured one by one in the MAC address filtering list or in a batch on the MAC address filtering settings page. Let's take a look at the demo. Click MAC address filtering. Check to enable it. Select Only allow MAC address in the list to access the Internet or only block MAC address in the list to access the Internet. Click Add to configure a single entry or click MAC address filtering settings. Follow the specified format to configure multiple entries in a batch. Like this. Let's copy-paste the example below and change a little bit to make them different. Just go with David and Mary. Then click Add. Now we can find them in the MAC address filtering list. Next, let's look at the VPN features. UTT-based routers now support PBTP and IPsec VPN. New types of VPN will be added in the future firmware. Point-to-point tunneling protocol, shortened as PBTP, is an old-fashioned method for implementing virtual private networks. PBTP uses a control channel over TCP and a GRE tunnel operating to encapsulate the PBP packets. A UTT business router can act as a PBTP business server or client, or both. Internet Protocol Security, shortened as IPsec, is a framework of open standards for helping to ensure private, secure communication over Internet Protocol networks through the use of cryptographic security services. IPsec is integrated at the Internet layer. It provides security for almost all protocols in the TCP/IP suite. And because IPsec is applied transparently to applications, there is no need to configure separate security for each application that uses TCP/IP. UTT business routers support IPsec VPN in 3 modes. Mode 1 is bidirectional. Both ends should have a public IP. Mode 2 is originate only. The UTT end has a dynamic IP, probably a private IP, and the other end has a public IP. Mode 3 is answer only. The UTT end has a public IP and the other end has a dynamic IP address, probably a private IP address. Let's take a look at the demo. click VPN, click PPTP. We can connect to a PPTP server by clicking Add Client, or set up a PPTP server by clicking Add Server. Let's check the two demo entries. Click UTT Demo. This is the PPTP client for the mobile user. Its username and password is configured here. And we can assign a static IP address to the host connecting with this account. This IP address should be contained in the PPTP address pool. We can also change the tunnel type to LAN and set up a site-to-site PPTP connection with another router that supports PPTP. Then we need to specify the subnet address and subnet mask of the network on the other end of the VPN connection. Let's click Global Settings. Check to enable PPTP server. We can select the PPP authentication encryption protocol to secure the PPTP connection. They must match on both ends of the tunnel. The PPTP address pool, number of addresses, server IP, and DNS server address can be changed here. The server IP address is the IP address of the PPTP server's virtual interface. It must be out of the PPTP address pool. We can also change the maximum transmission unit here. Usually, we can keep the settings on this page as default. Okay, the server is set up and waiting for clients to connect. Next, let's click UTT Client. Check to enable it. If NAT is enabled, it only allows unidirectional access from a PPTP client to the server. This is the tunnel name. These are the client's username and password. If authentication and encryption are configured on the server, it should also be configured on the client to match those of the server. Then the subnet address, subnet mask of the server network, and the server's IP address or domain name. After the client is configured, check it and click Connect to connect to the server, or click Disconnect when it is already connected to the server. Next, let's click IPsec. Click Add. Select the connection type. We have explained these three modes earlier. Now, if we have a public IP and wish to connect to a router also using a public IP, select bidirectional. Specify the gateway IP or domain name, the subnet address and subnet mask of the network on the remote end, and these parameters on the local network. Instead of entering the gateway IP or domain name, we only need to select an interface in bind to. Next, let's configure the security options. First, configure the pre-shared key for iKey negotiation. Then select an encryption and authentication combination as the first policy in Phase 2. Then click Advanced Options. Select Main Mode in Exchange Mode. The main mode is stricter and more secure than aggressive mode, although slower. But when we try to set up a dynamic IPsec, we can only apply aggressive mode. This is the IKESA lifetime. Usually we should keep it as default. The first negotiation policy needs to be configured. The rest three are not a must. You can either configure them or not. We can set them to blank. Then set the other policies of Phase 2 or just keep them as blank. The default SA lifetime in Phase 2 is 3600 seconds. Next is the other options. If anti-replay is enabled, the UTT VPN gateway can detect and reject replayed packets, that is, old or duplicate packets, to protect itself against replayed attacks. Check DPD. The router will periodically send DPD heartbeat messages at a specified time interval, that is here, to the remote IPsec device to verify its availability. NAT traversal allows two IPsec devices to establish an IPsec tunnel by traversing one or more NAT devices. Apply this option when the other end of the VPN does not have a public IP. And this is the UPD port for NAT traversal. It is 4500 by default. The keep alive frequency specifies the time interval at which the UTT VPN gateway will periodically send keep alive packets to the NAT device to keep the NAT mapping active, so that the NAT mapping does not change until the IKE SA and IPsec SAs expire. The last two parameters will only take effect when NAT traversal is enabled. If the router has a public IP but the other end of the IPsec VPN doesn't, we need to configure the connection type as answer only. Select it here. Then configure the remote ID value and ID type to match with the local ID value and ID type on the other end. The local ID value and ID type on the router must match with the remote ID value and ID type. In addition, the exchange mode in the advanced options must be aggressive, not main, and we need to enable NAT traversal. The settings of the other options are similar to that of the bidirectional mode. On the contrary, if the router does not have a public IP, while the other end of the IPsec VPN has a public IP, we should select Originate Only in Connection Type. Do not enable NAT traversal. The settings of other options are similar to that of the Answer Only mode. Okay, that was all for Firewall and VPN. Let's get back to the question at the beginning. How to prevent LAN hosts from visiting any website while still having access to a server on the other end of the VPN. What we should do is to configure two access control rules. Let's go to the web UI. First, configure a rule to prevent all LAN hosts from accessing the internet, like the demo one. Then, configure the second rule to allow the access to the VPN remote network. I named it Server here. Action Allow and Protocol All. Destination IP is the server IP 10.10.10.200. And save. Check to enable them. Check here to enable access control. Last but not least, select Server and move it up above No Internet. Save again. Done. Just that easy. That's all for part 4, Firewall and VPN. For more information, please feel free to go to www.uttglobal.com, which is our official website. As always, you can contact us by sending an email to support@uttglobal.com. I hope this video is informative to you and I'd like to thank you for watching.